Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad that you are able to join us this Tuesday afternoon. So I'll go ahead and introduce what May and I have cooking. Today, we're going to be presenting our titles Aligning VI and O&M Goals with Common Core State Standards. And just real quick, I'm Stephanie Herlich, and I'm a teacher of the visually impaired and orientation and mobility specialist. I'm also the coordinator for the assessment program at California School for the Blind. And I'll let May introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. I'm May. I'm a licensed educational psychologist and nationally certified school psychologist. And I'm with the assessment team for the California School for the Blind. There's another team of psychologists that works with our students who are on campus. I'm part of our outreach department with Stephanie.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and launch in. Feel free to put questions into the chat. We have enough people that helping moderate that. We can try to answer questions as we go, and hopefully you'll find this helpful. So, okay, I got some new tech here going, and I'm just going to probably bumble along just a teeny bit, but hopefully not too much. Okay. So just want to start off with, some back. Oh, wait, May, you're doing this part.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if I should interrupt you.
May is going to start off. Go for it.
So what are the Common Core State Standards? So they're based on research and evidence, aligned with college and work expectations, rigorous and internationally benchmarked. And something is popping up, Stephanie. Okay, you got it. And no worries. So basically the standards establish what it means to be a literate person in the 21st century. So our Common Core standards for literacy and math, they're intended to be a living work, and as new and better evidence emerges, the standards will be revised accordingly, which makes sense since our technology is, quickly advancing, likely so quickly that our standards won't be revised in real time along with technology. But the hope and goal is that we try to keep along with emerging technologies as much as possible. And when we're looking at the Common Core State Standards for literacy in particular, we're hoping that they build creativity, innovation, critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, and communication skills. And so to get into a little bit more about how do the Common Core standards relate to the college and career readiness standards. So they're essentially the backbone for the Common Core standards. And the Common Core standards are grade specific. For the lower grades, they're in 1 year grade bands. Oh, but that's in another slide. Getting ahead of myself. And so they're grade specific, and they define the end of year expectations. So to be ready for college and workforce training and just life in a society with technology, our students need to be able to gather, comprehend, evaluate, synthesize, and summarize information and ideas to conduct original research, to answer questions and solve problems, so be good Googlers and know how to use our library system to answer their questions, and to analyze and create a high volume and extensive range of print and non-print text in media forms, old and new. So we're hoping that our students will be able to, using their different accessibility tools, access different print information and non-print information, like videos with audio description or text that, is put onto their Braille note. And we need to conduct research and produce and consume media every day. That's a part of our everyday lives, just being a knowledgeable consumer of news right now is super important to, use reliable resources, and it's embedded in our everyday life, and we need it to also be embedded in our curriculum, which is part of the goal for the Common Core State Standards. And so other key ideas. So our state standards, when they are, thank you, for grades, for the lower grades 5 and under, there's comprehensive, so they cover all areas. But when we get into grades 6 through 12, the ELA standards, English Language Arts, get divided into a specific English Language Arts section and a section covering literacy standards for history, social studies, science, and technical subjects. So even though you might be in a class learning about history, social studies, science, or any technical subjects, you're still working on literacy skills. So that's why there's this division, although this division reflects, the time-honored place of English language arts teachers. It recognizes that teachers of other subjects must have a role in this development as well. So like if you're researching about something in history and writing a paper about it, that's one example. And so the standards should also be read as allowing for the widest possible range of students to participate fully from the outset and be permitting of appropriate accommodations to ensure maximum participation by students with special needs. So for example, students with reading disabilities might have different accessibility tools like Chrome extensions on their browsers, or students with visual impairments can be using Braille to access different reading material. And in a similar vein, when speaking about speaking and listening, which are part of the ELA standards, there's reading, writing, speaking, and listening. It should be broadly interpreted to include the use of sign language. So these are grade-specific standards, but they don't define how to get to the end result. So the method of intervention or the materials necessary to support students who are below grade level standards, they're not set by this. It doesn't give you a specific curriculum that you have to follow. And so these standards do provide a clear signpost or goal for getting along the way of being ready for college or a career.
Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, give me 1 second. My notes keep disappearing. Don't know why. There we go. So one of the reasons that May and I decided to give this presentation is it's really important that when we are developing IEP goals and have expectations for our students who are visually impaired, that we think about the standards. I think sometimes we forget where students who without disabilities lie. So many times I will be talking to a teacher and they'll say to me, oh my gosh, Johnny is doing so well. Johnny's in 5th grade and he's reading and, he's making such great progress. And then you dig a little deeper and you're like, well, that's fantastic. What is his reading speed? And it's, 40 words per minute. And, what books is Johnny reading? And then Johnny might be reading books that are really at the 3rd grade level. And so, yeah, Johnny's doing great, but we need to remember that what are the standards? And because we want to hold our students to high standards, and we need to be mindful of what those standards are. So, how can we access them so that we can make sure where our students fall within these IEP goals that we're working so hard to write? So there's several different places, and we will provide you links to all of these, but I wanted to show you a couple of my favorites. So I have a new little tool here. So this first one is the Curriculum Corner. And the Curriculum Corner has, I'm going to go ahead and click the link here so you can see it.
And I just dropped it in the chat, and I'll be dropping things in the chat as Stephanie goes along.
And we will share the PowerPoint with you as soon as we make this webinar go live. So you'll have access to it then. So what these folks at the Curriculum Corner has done is pretty amazing. It takes a little bit of scrolling because there are a fair number of ads, but you can go to your grade level and you can click it. So we're gonna stick with Johnny in 5th grade. And once you go to 5th grade, you can access the standards in a couple of different ways. So they have them broken down into the Common Core state standards, the reading and math. And then you can pull them up as an Excel document. The ones up here are PDFs, the first ones. And then this is what I really like. I really like these I can checklists for the standards. And I'm going to go ahead and click one. And we have a couple of examples, and we even have a case study of how you can use these I can or the standard statements. So it opens up as a PDF. Somewhere around here, my PDF's going to open, I think. I have too many screens going, but where did it disappear to? Oh, it's still opening. Of course, my computer's acting slow. Oh, I don't know. Oh, hold on. I got the little circle that says it's thinking. There we go. Okay, so remember, this is 5th grade. I just selected English Language Arts. And the ICANN standards, they correspond to the CCSS, the Common Core State Standards, but they've put them in a very easy to understand format. And so for example, I can read unfamiliar words that have more than one syllable. Well, that's really plain English, and it's great, and it's easy to figure out where your students lie in terms of these standards. So this is, I feel like, a really fabulous spot to go to access what those standards are for your age level. Another thing, another resource that we want to give you is the Common Core State Standards for, I'm looking at this one right here, for K through 12 technology skills, scope and sequence. So there are no specific technology standards for grades K through 5, but these guys linked the Common Core standards K through 12 using a really great chart. And they've also linked it in terms of the state testing. So in this, the SBAC testing, so that our students are prepared for the testing. So you can see here, there's the key, there's oh, here, wait, let me show you. Hold on, oh, wait. There we go. We have I for introduce, R for reinforce, M for mastery, and O for optional grade level. And you can see that they're filled in here on the chart. So for example, we'll look here, the SBAC test taking skills. Use desktop icons, windows, and menus to open applications and documents. So by 2nd grade, they should have mastery with that. And these are standards that we can use as we're writing technology goals. And I believe they've also linked them. It goes all the way through different communication and collaboration. So I would definitely take a look at this chart as we write a lot of technology goals, and this is a way to see where do our students lie in terms of those state standards. The next one I'm going to talk about is this California Standards Mobile. Actually, I'm going to put that one on hold for a moment. We're going to go back to that one, but there is a mobile app that the California Department of Education came up, designed, that can help us find the standards, and I'll do a little demonstration of how that works in a minute. And then the actual California Common Core standards can be found through this link, and you can go through and find all the standards here. So we will provide you with these links. And then for those of you who may be O&Mers out there, are there O&M standards? So in 2017, Wisconsin developed O&M Career College and Community Readiness Standards. The reason we want to be using standards is because that they are research-based. And so if we are ever needing to defend why we are teaching students a specific skill or where students should be, it's important to know that these standards are research-based. And as May mentioned earlier, the standards provide a benchmark of knowledge, skills, and behavior. So I really do like these O&M standards that were written, and even though they're not from California, because they're based on the career, college, and readiness standards, those are national. So we can use them here in California or wherever you may be dialing in from. So I'm just scrolling down because I kind of want to show you the key piece of this is these charts. And what they've done is they've divided these standards up into 5 principal areas. They have concept development, sensory development, orientation and mapping, travel techniques, and communication, personal safety, and advocacy. And then, as you can see in this one that I kind of stopped on, they're broken up then into the age groups and where students should be or performing based on that age group. And then those standards, the concept development, sensory development, when you write your O&M goal, you can link it into this O&M CCCR standards. So it's a little, I know it might be a lot to take in at the moment, which is why we're going to do a case study and try to show you a little bit of how to use it. But one thing, you know, these Tuesday Teas, I think, as a way to provide you with new resources and ideas as you're moving forward. So, because I can't really explain the, all of these documents have a lot of meat in them, but hopefully you'll have time to go back and take a look. So, with that being said, just a couple of IEP goal reminders, because as we're linking our goals to standards, it's important that we're writing strong IEP goals. And so just wanted to give you a couple of things to remember when you're writing IEP goals. That annual goals are statements that describe what students can reasonably be expected to accomplish within a 12-month period. And IEP teams must write goals in a way that allows for objective measurement of progress toward achieving these goals. So objective being the key word here, they really need to be measurable goals. And they should be aligned with state academic content standards. And so that's what we're going to go ahead and show you how we did that in our case study. And Andrew F. was a landmark court case, and it requires IEP teams to ensure that goals are appropriately ambitious and that all children have opportunity to meet challenging objectives. And this is kind of where I started in saying we need to have appropriate expectations for our students and know where students who without disabilities, what are those expectations, and our students should have, we need to know whether or not our students are meeting those or not. Now, I will have a caveat to that statement, which may sound a little bit contradictory, but I want to throw it out there. We've also seen students in the assessment center who have goals that are way too high for their abilities. So it's important to be mindful of that because we do things that they are not ready to do. So it is a bit of a double-edged sword, but we need to know what the standards are regardless. I hope that makes sense there. So, I did want to throw out in terms of IEP goals, and May will go ahead and put this in the chat. We just heard today that I think it's the diagnostic centers have an upcoming webinar on goal writing. It's December 9th through the 9th and 16th. It's a 2-part webinar. And on writing IEP goals, it's open for any special education teachers. May just do that in the chat. And there is a registration, so you must register online by November 15th. So if you want to update your IEP writing skills, that's probably going to be a good webinar to check out. So I think, May, do I keep going? Did I go too much? No. Okay. So I'm going to just present our case study here. And this is a fictitious student, Kayla. She's going to be in 5th grade, a Braille reader who's congenitally blind. She does have social emotional needs. She receives support from her TVI, O&M, speech language pathologist, psychologist. She has an instructional aide and receives APE. So hopefully this somewhat resembles maybe a student you have or a student you have had. And she is in a general education 5th grade class. And then I'm just going to read this little blurb that we wrote for Kayla so that the goals we present are going to make sense. Kayla is using UEB with Nemeth. Her reading speed is 35 words per minute. She is a JAWS user, but does not consistently use her refreshable display. She also uses a Braille Note Touch, which she relies on heavily for schoolwork. She accesses most of her reading materials through Bookshare, listening auditorily. Kayla has a one-to-one instructional assistant to help with reading, writing, and math. Her work samples during remote instruction are showing less competency in all subjects, prompting staff to wonder if this is due to less support from her instructional assistant. Kayla can keyboard with 80% accuracy and knows basic JAWS commands. Kayla is progressing with cane skills, but is having difficulty reading tactile maps for route planning and travel. So you can go ahead and throw a thumbs up or something in the chat if this sounds like a student that might seem familiar to you. It is totally fictitious though. Okay, so we developed some goals because I want to show you how to apply these standards that we're talking about. So she has a Braille goal, and it is by October 2021, Kayla will increase her reading speed to 15 words per minute through daily independent reading for a minimum of 20 minutes as measured by teacher collected data. Reading practice will be charted and reading speed will be tested monthly. So we related this to the Common Core State Standard of English Language Arts and Literacy, which is numbered RF54. And I'll show you that that's basically right here is how you can identify these different standards. So I really like that. I showed you the link with the I can statements. So I really like those. I think that they're easily understandable, certainly for families and me and for anybody. So the related standard is I can fluently read and understand books at my level well. And the actual standard is read with sufficient accuracy and fluency to support comprehension. What I want to show you real quick is how you can use, if you remember, I talked about the app that California came up with in order to help us sift through the different standards, because there's a lot of them and it can feel maybe a little overwhelming to think, okay, I know what goal I want to write, but does this apply to the standards? So I'm going to show you that while we have Kayla's Braille goal up here. In order to do that, I need to stop sharing this screen. Whoops, didn't mean to advance. Okay.
And as Stephanie's transitioning to her iPad screen, Jen, I just wanted to make sure we let you know we saw your question, and I'll make sure to circle back to it after Stephanie is done going through this case study. So thank you so much for throwing a question in the chat. And Summer commented in the chat, definitely sounds like a possibility to have a student like this. So yeah, you might have some students in your caseload or in your past history where these kinds of needs are similar. And
someone might need to let my iPad into the meeting. Okay, cool.
And when you're looking at these goals, try to look at it with a critical lens too, because these are not perfect goals. There are areas where we can improve upon these goals. And CSB staff, I'm looking to you. There are some specific things that if you read Angela's email, you would say, oh, this could be included to improve it. So after Stephanie shows us the app, we're going to go back to the goal and try to shout out or put in the chat how we could improve this goal.
Amanda, can you have my iPad be a, whatchamacallit, I need screen rights for the iPad.
Let me see here. I think.
And just to let you guys know, for the Diagnostic Center North Goal Writing Symposium, they're going to be doing breakout rooms for different topics. There's topics for academics and for behavior and executive functioning. So I think it would be a great practice for anyone who's interested in sharpening their goal writing skills. All right, looks like Stephanie's ready.
Cool. Okay. Whew. It was a little stressful to make sure that that's going to work. Okay, so this is, actually I'll go back so you can see what the app looks like. It's that far right app, California Standards. So this is what the main screen looks like. Although I have gone ahead and selected this English, if you look on the left, English language arts. So they've, on the left-hand side is a tab with all of the individual standards: arts, career technical ed, computer science, English language arts, math, all the different ones. So I'm selecting English language arts because if you remember, we're talking about a Braille reading goal. So, and I want to find an English language arts, what are the standards at 5th grade? So, I'm going to go ahead. The more you put into this search function, obviously the less you're going to get, and you may need to broaden your search like any advanced search. So, but I'm going to go ahead and start with the domain. And I'm looking through these domain options. I've got language, reading foundational skills. And that to me sounds like what I'm looking for when I'm thinking Braille. They're very foundational skills. And then I had played around with this before, but you can select your grade, but we know she's in 5th grade. So I'm actually gonna make mine maximum so that, because I don't wanna have to sift through all the standards K through 12. So you can see it has now popped up 2. So maybe I was too narrow, but maybe not. But let's take a look here. So you might remember that this identifier, it actually matches the same identifier in the application I showed you with the I can statements. So the reading RF is for reading fluency, and standard 5.3. And the standard is know and apply grade level phonics and word analysis skills in decoding words. So, you know, I'm thinking we're talking here about, I want her to read Braille to increase her fluency, and she's supposed to read 20 minutes of continuous reading. I'm not sure that's really targeting this standard, so I'm going to check out the next one, which is reading fluency 5.4. And the oh look, the cluster is fluency, and the standard is read with sufficient accuracy and fluency to what I want. Read on level text with purpose and understanding. B, read on level prose and poetry orally with accuracy, appropriate rate and expression on successive readings. And use context to confirm or self-correct word recognition and understanding, rereading as necessary. So that looks exactly like what I want. And that is, you know, the 5th grade standard. So I would know that that goal I've written does correlate to the state standards. So that's a quick demonstration of how to use the app. Are there any questions before I stop sharing it, because it's a little tricky to get back to it? And if you have a question, you can throw it in the chat or even just call out. There's not that many of us.
So Stephanie, the question that was in the chat earlier, it's not particular to the app, but Jen was asking, or she's saying this is for the I CAN statement charts. This is a great resource for a low vision student in middle school. Do you recommend showing them the standards, allowing them to see where they are and motivate them to move forward? I have 2 students who would rather not work in school, sighted readers.
Yeah, I think that you would know your students best, but I think it could be a good motivator. Certainly, it would depend on the student, but I don't see why not in some cases to share that so that they know what their peers are doing. That being said, if you have a student who is feeling really down because they absolutely know they're not keeping up with their peers, that would be a different situation.
Yeah, and I think it's all about how you frame it as well when you're presenting it. And just like Stephanie said, I think a lot of things in special education is case by case basis, and so it depends. So I agree with Stephanie, but just if you do show it to them, frame it in a way where it feels like this is motivational and not judgmental, because I feel a lot of our students are very self-critical. So
back to my PowerPoint share. Oh, I almost left the meeting. I did not. Thank goodness. Okay. Let me see where we're at with our, okay, so here's our Braille goal. We talked about that. And I have those, the I CAN statements, and you can see that our reading fluency 5.4, that's the one that we found through the app. So,
and does anyone have does anyone have any improvements for that goal, for the Braille goal?
Oh, yeah.
And hint, hint to people who are CSB staff, Angela sent an email not too long ago that would give you a hint to what I'm trying to guide you to in how to improve this goal.
We're going to have to forward that email statewide.
So
I think maybe we'll all be able to improve upon it after we take the webinar.
Yeah, from Diagnostic Center North. Does anyone have any ideas? I'm not seeing any in the chat, and I'm trying to scroll through if in case someone has a hand raised. Not seeing it. So what I was trying to hint at, Angela, one guideline that she said is to remember to include an annual goal date. So for the actual annual goal, putting the month, the day, the year. Here we only put the month and the year. So 1 year from the date of the IEP is good. So if you're doing benchmarks, your benchmarks can be just month and year, but for the actual annual goal, putting month, day, and year would be one way to make this more specific.
Cool. Okay, we're gonna keep going. So, reading and assistive technology. And remember, Kayla is a JAWS user, but she doesn't consistently use her Braille display. I think there were some other technology things in her bio, but we're going to read this. By October 2021, Kayla will independently, meaning 0 prompts, search and download books and articles needed for classwork as measured by teacher collected data on prompting. So how many times she needs help in order to do this because we want her to do it with 0 prompts. So again, I went to the app and I started with the goal I wanted and then linked it to the standards. So this is a literacy, RI's reading for information. The standard is draw on information from multiple print or digital sources, demonstrating the ability to locate an answer to a question quickly or to solve a problem efficiently. So, you know, even though this is reading and assistive technology, I feel that this CCSS standard really does apply. And the I can statement is I can use different types of informational text to locate an answer or to solve a problem. So
and Stephanie, in the chat, there was a question, will there be a separate goal for comprehension for going back to the fluency goal? That goal will address reading speed.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I do not think, I'm just scrolling through really quick. I don't think in this scenario, I did put comprehension, but it's very likely that she would need a comprehension goal. One thing that I do when I read IEPs that are sent to us through the assessment center, a lot of times we'll get IEPs that have many goals. And oftentimes I think that there's just too many. And some of those goals are grade level goals. So for example, let's say Kayla, her reading speed might be slow, but she might have excellent comprehension. In that case, I would not put in a comprehension goal because that would just be coming from her general education class. And if she's operating at 5th grade, she does not need a comprehension goal. Remember that the goals are only for where they're falling behind due to their, you know, for TBI or O&M due to their visual impairment. So we don't want to write goals that are already grade, that they'd be doing in their grade level anyways. And that's one way to cut down on the number of goals that sometimes these students get. Does that make sense?
And Cheryl put in the chat, she has had students that can read pretty fast, but do not retain what they have read. And yes, that is another issue. And I just wanted to also throw it out there for reading comprehension. It's really important to note how the student is supposed to reach that goal in comprehension, because sometimes there's confusion with reading comprehension goals. Is the student using one type of media or dual media? So is it listening and reading comprehension, or is it strictly using Braille or large print? Because when you pick up an IEP, anyone should be able to understand what that goal is. And if it's not clearly specified for our students, sometimes someone might pick up a goal and say, oh, you're supposed to be reading 5th grade level text, so I'll just give you this text and you use a kind of Braille display to access it and you should be fine. But actually the student was having Braille and voiceover on their iPad to access the text to have grade level comprehension. So it's very important to be specific that anyone who picks up the IEP can easily understand what the goal is.
Great. Okay. So here's another example that May is going to give.
So this is for writing and assistive technology. By October 2021, Kayla will be able to compare and contrast 2 or more characters, settings, or events in a story using conventional spelling and grammar as measured by teacher-collected data using a 5th grade level reading rubric developed from the Common Core state standards, scoring 80%. And the standard rubric. Oh, sorry, writing rubric. Thank you. And so the standard is W.5.9.A. Apply grade 5 reading standards to literature. For example, compare and contrast pretty much what's in the goal, 2 or more characters, settings, or events in a story or drama, drawing on specific details from this text, like how the students interact. And the I can statement for this is, I can apply all that I have learned in 5th grade reading to writing literature. And for this goal, there's actually on the next slide, another standard that is applicable to this.
Can I just want to throw one thing out, May. So in writing this goal for Kayla, I was thinking about proper goal writing. I want Kayla to have practice writing. She's a beginning, she's still learning Braille. She needs more practice, whether it's on the computer, so that would be, assistive technology, maybe with her Braille note taker, interacting with her refreshable display, so that when she's, let's say she's typing using JAWS, and I want her to be able to use her Braille display to go back and edit her work, because that's a whole lot easier having a Braille display while you're editing. So in order to make this applicable to the 5th grade standards, that's why it is compare and contrast 2 or more characters. In her, we could have maybe, to make this a better goal, like May was saying, it should say what she's going to use in order to achieve this. But instead of us being very specific to, if I had just written, Kayla will use her Braille display to edit her work with 80% accuracy. That doesn't apply as well to the standards, because what is editing? Well, for 5th grade, she should be comparing and contrasting 2 or more characters, blah, blah, blah. So that's what lifts it to the level of the standards and relates it to her assistive technology.
Mm-hmm. And one more note about, so in the goal, we said there would be a rubric. So usually when you get an IEP and it says that there will be a rubric, what should be attached to the IEP? A copy of the rubric. Because we want anyone who picks up the IEP to know what we're talking about. So I have seen IEPs where, attached, scanned in with the IEP, there's like maybe a speech and language rubric or a writing rubric. Because again, we want anyone who picks it up, if the student moves, it to be very clear what our goals are and how we can mark the student's success or progress towards that goal. But the other standard that this writing goal relates to is the literacy standard W54, produce clear and coherent writing in which the development and organization are appropriate to task, purpose, and audience. So the I can statement is I can produce clear writing with appropriate development and organization to suit my task, purpose, and audience. Does anyone have any other recommendations of how this goal could be a stronger goal? Seeing none in the chat, trying to scroll through participants. I know it's a lot to ask you. Oh, number of trials, ding, 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 yay, Veronica. I was hoping someone would bring that up. So a lot of times I'll see in 3 out of 4 trials or 4 out of 5 trials. Veronica gave the example in 3 consecutive trials or in 3 out of 4 trials, yes. So we want to be very specific. So how do we mark success? We mark success as in 3 out of 4 trials, they get this level of accuracy on the rubric of 80%. So I think being specific in that manner, it helps, because then maybe they get it once. Is that showing mastery? Usually I do see trials or out of a specific number to show mastery of a skill. All right, thank you, Veronica. And technology, our technology goal. By October 2021, Kayla will be able to access, edit, and share Google Classroom documents and emails independently as measured by TVI collected data using a rubric developed from 5th grade technology standards in 4 out of 5 opportunities. So we related this to the writing standards 5, 6, and 10. So use a word processing application to write, edit, print, and save simple assignments. And so again, if we're saying that there should be a rubric should be attached to the IEP so people know what we're talking about. And if you look at the technology standards that Stephanie showed earlier, it does a nice breakdown of what to expect. What we expect a 12th grade student to do with a document in terms of editing is much more complex than what we expect a 2nd grader or a 5th grader to do. So for this example, we would expect a student to be able to edit the font, the size, the style, the line spacing and margins, and to be able to proofread their document. We want students not just to write, but be able to go back and edit their writing using maybe a dictionary or a spell checker or grammar, depending on what the teacher allows, and to independently save and submit that document to the instructor. So in times where you're in person, maybe save and print. But right now, if you're remote learning, maybe save and share or save an email to a teacher. And yes, very good point, Cheryl. You might not want to be platform specific because not all districts use Google Classroom. Very good point, Cheryl. So a lot of times in our IEPs, unless we have to buy something specifically for our student, usually we're discouraged to put a specific like technology unless we're trying to use low incidence fund to buy something.
Yeah, I would actually have a caveat to that. I almost think that and this is I'll throw it out as a question, but I would think we would want to be specific because so many times districts we might want our students to be using Google for a very specific reason, or we want our students to be using a PC and not a Chromebook because Chromebooks wouldn't work for a student who's using JAWS. So I think we do want to be specific with the technology that's being used. And maybe there's a difference between technology and platform, especially these days, because, you know, even within a district, some people are using Zoom and some people are using Google Meet and some are using Microsoft Word and some are using Google Docs. But
put comments in the chat. Like we said earlier, these are not perfect goals. So we appreciate you throwing out, you know, suggestions and questions and comments. And Adrian, I see you unmuted, so you probably have a comment. Go ahead.
Just gonna say, remember that the IEP itself is a document beyond the single goal. And so I think what Cheryl was saying was, rather than saying use Google Classroom, you can say they can access, edit, and share documents in email. And as an accommodation that this student needs access to the mainstream curriculum, including shared collaborative documents. Or Cheryl also pointed out, you can say access through a learning platform. You can throw in a such as Google Classroom. Sometimes districts will make your life 100 times easier if you elicit something in a goal. The process of purchasing gets easier. But ideally, right. I think we try to keep the specific out of the goal itself. And even keep the specific out of the accommodation itself, but be sneaky with the way we write the accommodation in the sense of we write out an accommodation that works for a kid. Maybe only one product can meet that need.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
And
thank you.
Yeah, I definitely have edited goals just specifically for the purpose of I needed to purchase something and I need to edit the goal so that it said that specific technology will be used for this goal so that I can use low incidence funds.
Sounds like Santa Clara County to me.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Summer just put in the chat. She said if a student moves out of district, the new district might need to amend the goal if we are too specific on platforms. Thank you.
Sure.
Cool.
Oh, very
okay.
good comment.
And time's going fast. Okay. May, do you want to do the O&M one?
Oh yeah, sure. So O&M, by October 2021, Kayla will be able to identify a location that is a post box, street corner, friend's house on a tactile map of her home neighborhood, and then independently travel to that location on 3 out of 3 trials. And so this goes along with the standards, with the O&M standards that Stephanie was sharing earlier. Apply concepts of orientation, directionality and compass directions to understand and travel complex grid and route patterns through residential and semi-business areas. And sorry, my brain is just going back to what Adrian said about accommodations. Just a quick note, whenever you write accommodations, don't put as needed. That was kind of a big thing that I recently learned from a legal presentation, was that if it's in the IEP, it's needed. So remove the as needed.
All right.
Any comments or questions about this O&M goal? And Summer put, I feel like we need a number of locations, at least 5. Thank you. Yeah, that would be
agree.
more specific.
Yeah,
Thank
I would
you.
agree. Thanks. All right, so boy, we kind of cut this right down to the wire, but this is a couple of resources. So we already put in the chat, but this is the mobile application, the app, where I was using to find the standards that link to the goals. And then there's also the Diagnostic Center North Goal Writing Symposium, and that was also thrown into the chat. Again, register by November 15th. And maybe grab that link out of the chat just in case we don't get this up onto our YouTube page as fast as by November 15th that you need the link to register.
And Veronica just threw in the chat for the previous goal we were talking about, as measured by teacher observations and charting. So yes, when you're writing an IEP goal, you want to write a SMART goal. Does anyone remember what SMART stands for? I know a lot of us had this kind of acronym thrown at us in our training. I'm going to give a second to let the juices percolate and see if you can remember. And I'm trying to scroll through, see if anyone's raising their hand. All right. So, oh, thank you, Andy. So S question mark, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. Yes, and specific. Yes, Summer, thank you. Thank you everyone for your participation. Yes, so we want to be specific on how we measure their success. In what way are we measuring that success? Like Veronica said, like as measured by teacher observations and charting. Make it attainable. It has to be realistic for that student to accomplish it within 12 months time from the time of that goal being written and adopted and approved by parents. And another important part is to have parent input on the goals. So when we're presenting an IEP, it's all a draft document, and it's very important to get parent involvement and parent input into these goals. That is another thing to really try to keep in mind. You know, this is a live legal document that we want to make sure we document and engage all critical stakeholders. And you know, parents know their kids best, and they really should have a strong say and input on the IEP. So to facilitate your IEP meetings to allow for that parent involvement, one way would be to provide draft goals, clearly saying that this is a draft and we'll talk about it at the IEP meeting, but you know, here are our ideas, and provide that in advance of the meeting allows them to meaningfully participate. Any questions or any other ideas or recommendations that you guys have for writing IEP goals?
Thank you everybody for coming. I know we talked a lot about goals, and just, you know, back to our original statement of think about the standards to make sure that your goals are appropriate to your students' grade level, and be mindful of what those expectations are, and remembering that the standards are based on research.
Yes, and there's a couple comments in the chat I just want to share out. So Veronica was saying, I like calling the parents before the IEP meeting and ask what they would like to see written into goals and check if my goals ideas sound good to them. Summer also said, I like having a pre-IEP team meeting to talk to teams and draft joint goals. And a lot of people are saying, thank you, great information, very helpful. And it's not always possible to do pre-team meets, but it's helpful when you can do it. So yes, thank you everyone for your input. And like Stephanie said, we really appreciate you spending your time coming here and joining us for this Tuesday Tea hosted by CSB.
And Adrian, do you want to throw out what the next topic is for next week? I meant to write it down and I do not remember.
Oh, I think it's
No
Texas
problem.
is coming, right?
We
Or no?
are taking a little bit of a break from Tuesday Tea, appreciating that next week is right before a week off for a lot of teachers, or right before report cards and parent meetings for others. We decided not to do one next week, and then the following week, if you are working, you're probably desperately trying to get your day done to enjoy the rest of the Thanksgiving week. And so our next Tuesday Tea is actually December 1st. Our host for the day is going to be Emily Coleman. She's the superintendent at the Texas School for the Blind. And more pertinent to our Tuesday Tea is she's one of the co-authors of the Bill of Rights for all children with visual impairments and their families. If you haven't checked it out, do a Google search of it. It's on the Cosby website. It is also on the AER website. And Emily's going to lead a discussion and presentation of what the Bill of Rights are, what the 10 considerations are, how to introduce them to our families and to our students, and why they're an appropriate consideration for us to move our kids forward. Should be fun. Emily, if you guys don't know her, is also an active writer for AFB on their Family Connect website.
Thanks, Adrian.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, everybody.